Stu John channel here. Become a member over on Subscribestar. So Comixology, comics in decline. Checking in on Amerifat Bolshevik comics. Comics, in case you're unaware, used to be rad. Then soy boys and cat ladies took them over. Now it's all poxwalks, furry otherkin who are fighting the patriarchy in the shape of blonde-haired, blue-eyed motorcycle gangs. And more importantly, to the bottom line, they're making these products that just aren't selling. And then one of the tricks they do is they make a whole bunch of covers for them, so to force the collector to try to buy them. But it limits the overall market. It's kind of what the movies are doing in general. Is fewer people are seeing movies, but they're just charging more for the tickets. But it doesn't bode well for the next generation, because it's better for like this a safer industry is we have a broader collection of people buying your stuff, because it passes it on to the next generation. So movies and comics are kind of getting into this weird selective audience thing where fewer and fewer people are on board with their products. Anyway, so at least comics weren't selling back when you could track them pre the Wu flu, and then when that hit, the stuff went to digital. That was the pencils down thing, and then things got kind of slippery because you couldn't go to online tracking sites and track the digital sales like you could the paper sales. And when you were able to track paper sales of comics, it usually opens up. Very rarely does something take off. It usually opens up with collectors seek the number one, and then it just drops off, and then you can follow that like exponential decay chart pretty well, like you come to predict it. And then when it went to digital, suddenly the estimates for sales would be like, if it was something that before the Wu flu, it should be at like 17,000. Well, when it went to digital, the estimates would be like, well, this could be anywhere from like 20 to 80,000 copies sold. And you look at these estimates like, what the hell? You're not fooling anyone with this kind of stuff, but they put that in there anyway. Things got a little bit slippery when things went to digital, is what I'm trying to say. So what happened? Comixology, a comic, I mean, you've probably seen their ads on YouTube all the time if you're in this segment. A comic reading site was brought by Amazon a decade ago, and some people say Amazon screwed it up. And one of the worst reports I've heard is that people are discovering that the high definition manga they bought to be read on the newer tablets are like higher than high. They're ultra high definition. So for some reason, they're going to their library and they're discovering that they have the low definitions of something that they bought the high definition version of, which is sort of pointless when you have a new Kindle. It's got like 4,000 lines of resolution. You bought the high definition thing on purpose, which is why people are always talking about the need for physical media. Digital media is fine, but you really have to own it. You got to have the files on your hard drive in whatever form they come in. It's pointless to essentially just keep renting something. And it's not just comics. As a tech philosophy, it's not a good idea to not have copies of the stuff you want. Otherwise, you get the movies where the soldiers are running around fighting the tallywhackers in the warm, sandy places, but they all have walkie-talkies. Or you have a cloud copy of Star Wars and you watch it every year and discover that Lucas keeps working on it. Or Lord of the Rings just recently came out with a new opening scene and it kind of changes. It's good, it's fine, but it changes the tone. It's like, well, you kind of had an emotional attachment to the original Lord of the Rings, the way it slowly opened. And then this new scene starting off with a battle scene is like, that's a different vibe for the whole movie that I had remembered for the past 20 years in a different way. I don't want things to just be changed behind the scenes. I want to be able to compare the old versions to the new versions, which is why people go sailing and download the versions of it they want so they can watch the progression of what the director thinks they're improving a movie for. I can't imagine going back to reading a high definition manga. I guess with regular Americrap comics, it doesn't matter, but manga is actual, works of art, where the American stuff is just an embarrassment. And, suddenly you're discovering like, oh, I thought this was in, 4K and now it's like standard definition or something. Or going back to watch an old movie and a classic scene, suddenly has Jabba the Hutt getting his tail stepped on. Most of Lucas's stuff, his enhancements were fine, but some people are purists. They like Cloud City with gray walls instead of the digitally in place cloudy backgrounds. I thought a lot of his things were improvements. The other issue is that Marvel and there's a YouTube channel that'll go for like 4 hours of showing you the differences of how Lucas has changed Star Wars over the year. The other issue is that Marvel and DC have their own apps, but I can see how it would be convenient to just have one app that has all comics and manga, as opposed to having individual apps to keep on your tablet. But the better option is just to have the CBR, the PDF files, whatever file format it wants to come in, and have it on a really big micro SD card, because some of those comic files are big. but to actually physically have it, even if it's physically owned on a micro SD card external drive, and just use a book reader and library to manage all the files. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the concept of digital comics and books. I mean, there's like you can't knock when you go like, oh, I've got a Project Gutenberg library and I've got like 50,000 books. I mean, you just can't have a bookshelf like that. And to have like a digital bookshelf is like, oh, I can look up everything. Everything I have by Henry Rider Haggard. And it's like, well, it's, since it's legal to own everything of his for free, you can download all of it and you can have it in the book library. It's like I mean, it's amazing what you can do with a digital library, and you can even incorporate it. I think FeedBooks will incorporate with your desktop PC if you're really into books. I mean, it's amazing to have a digital library when you look at like a physical bookshelf. It's like, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get on an airplane with like 5 pocketbooks, but you can get on there with a tablet and it's like, yeah, I literally have 50,000 books on my tablet, and I can go through all these free books and the books that you pay for. It's really amazing. So anyway, so Amazon buys Comixology, screws it up, fires like 75% of the staff. Where are they going to go from here? Are they going to start over? Are they going to rebuild? Who knows? They should. They have the Kindle, which is a great series of tablets. I've had a half a dozen myself. It makes sense to have a native book reader apps in an incorporated store. And actually, the funny thing about Kindle is how badly it's set up with the lack of native software. It should have something like a FeedBook reader. That's a free app you can get on Android. Already incorporated with the tablet with all the software ready to read the various books and the graphic book files, and then have the internet libraries to Project Gutenberg and a bunch of other freeware sites, so you can download all the free books in the format you want. And also you can go to Amazon, obviously their site, and you can buy books from them. It's weird that the Kindle tech is so good, but the software is lacking for Kindle. And what I've done for Kindles, and a lot of people can do, is you can download, it's like 3 Amazon or Android files, and it allows you to use your Google ID to go to the Android store, and you can use the Android Play Store, the Google Play Store, as well as the Kindle store to get all the other apps, and it works on Kindle perfectly. I mean, because Kindle's just hardware. There's nothing magic about it. Anyway, the other point is, to what effect has the decline in the demand for comics overall changed things? Because in case you haven't noticed, American comics are nothing but cat lady globalist propaganda that even soy boys don't want to buy, and they're all shifting to manga. I don't know if that I wonder if there's like a passive aggressive resistance to manga on Twitter with these. You have these like, I don't know. The thing is, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of excitement, if any, about American comics at all on Twitter. Just not people draw the art, like people are drawing classic Spider-Man like artists and putting it up. And there's a lot of stuff that's associated around the characters that have been, in the public for the 50 to past 100 years. But that's not to say that there's no equivalent energy to, like, people aren't showing the comics like, hey, I have the latest Batman, Spider-Man, American, Captain America, because those comics aren't good. So they're just not like, there's just this weird missing black hole where, like, the American comic artists, Marvel and DC, and even Image and Dark Horse are kind of like celebrities in that field, but there's like this weird celebrityhood where it's like Gail Simone has got 200,000 followers on Twitter, and then you look at this, I don't know, the latest, I don't know, something like, she writes those girl groupie comics. There's like 5 women go out on an adventure, and it's like the famous, they're all 5'6" and 115 pounds, just like straight lines up and down, going out on some stupid adventure. It's like the Captain Marvel of comics. It's just so horrible. But they're well-known names. And then you look at the sales figures for whatever comic they have coming out. What was the last one I remember? The Daredevil, not the Daredevil. It's like the Daring. Something the devil. He's got like a spike belt or something. It's all just so stupid. I remember that one because there was a group of there's an angry mob that approaches this guy who's and the angry mob is of course all blue-eyed and blind. The whole thing is just so effing ridiculous. But they have this level of celebrity, and then you look at the stuff they're producing. You're like, this doesn't make sense. You're selling comics that, I mean, you should be embarrassed to sell like these big names in comics. Like Mark Waid with Ignited. So it was supposed to go like 10 issues. It went eight issues. Why is that? What happened? Oh, well, the opening for Ignited was something like, under 5,000. It was some bizarrely low number. And it's like, you got these two well-known guys, Kwanzaa, whatever, and Mark Wade. They're known names. And you go, so the first thing was like 2,800 copies sold, number one. That's weird. That's weird. So, you're going to go 10 episodes. So like I mean, they only went like 8 or something, 6 or 8, and they had to sum it up because, so by issue 8, you're down to like 1,200 copies, and your name is Mark Wade, and you're on all these like, famous in the comic book community, and you're selling something that's just like a Second Amendment propaganda shill. That's weird. Why do you do that? Maybe you should stop doing that and try to like get a comic that sells 120,000 copies instead of 1,200 copies. Anyway, the thing is, manga just tells a fun story with cool characters. They don't put this overlay of cultural Marxism over everything. It's like these just the worst college kid cliche learning from some globalist professor, some kind of nonsense, and the students are just furiously taking notes and like putting this into their comics. You think like, you ever question your professor on some of these things? You ever push back? It's like, no, because he'll flunk me if I push back. I just accept everything blindly. So, for example, if you're at Marvel and you just wanted to tell a story with all European characters or something, it just wouldn't happen. They would just tell you to replace all the good characters with pox ones and to make sure the bad characters are all blonde hair or green eyes. For mainstream comics, it really is that simple. They won't make an antagonist pox because it violates their Marxist belief system, which is roughly summed up to degrade and dehumanize the beautiful European people at every opportunity. So every gang is a Swedish biker gang. It's beyond the point of absurdity. I mean, it really is as bad as I make it out to be. And the Soy Boys on Twitter keep saying comics, the industry is fine, but it doesn't look fine to me. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys all next episode.